All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. We are very honored to welcome in the former U.S. Attorney General, Michael Mukasey. Mr. Mukasey, Mr. Attorney General, thank you for taking the time, sir.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Your good friend Andy McCarthy, we just had on a little while ago, sends his regards. Let us talk a little bit about what happened today, and that is the arrest of three friends of the bomber who is still alive, the youngest bomber in the Boston bombing, on charges of conspiracy to obstruct justice. That was two of them, and one making false statements to the FBI. And this is all in regards to evidence that was taken from the dorm room of the youngest bomber and disposed of, including explosive firework material and a laptop. What does this tell you, if anything?
Well, one thing it tells me is we got a problem. You take a look at the criminal complaints. Two of these guys were in the country on student visas. They were already marked for deportation. They were supposed to have been deported. Apparently there was some legal proceeding ongoing, and they were out and going to school. This is not the act of a couple of guys covering for somebody's underage drinking or violating a curfew or cheating on an exam. This was a horrific crime, and they covered it up according to the complaint. After somebody got an email saying you can from the younger bomber saying you can go to my room and take what you need. So it's pretty grim.
Yes, and one of the foreign students in particular, I believe, left the country. And even though he was no longer considered a full-time student and was considered in violation of this student visa, was allowed into the country. And I mean, this just takes us back to the older bomber who's deceased, who left the country. And according to Janet Napolitano, there was a ping. There wasn't a ping. It pinged only once when he left, not when he came back. It just seems like it's more of the same. And you got to ask, or I have to ask as a citizen, and maybe you have a better explanation, why isn't all this working the way it's supposed to work?
I think that, granted that it is difficult to police these things carefully and 100%. On the other hand, when you get this many problems, when you have this many warnings, you kind of wonder whether people's heads are really in it. That is to enforce it. We have a lot of talk about the need for immigration reform and so on, and I agree with some of it, but it's one of the aspects of sovereignty, of a country maintaining its sovereignty, is that it can control who comes in and who goes out, principally who comes in. The country has a right to control that, and the citizens of this country have a right to be assured that that's being controlled. And it's very difficult to conclude that it's being controlled when you see things like this.
Mr. Attorney General, we also have a report today that Saudi Arabia, and this according to a source talking to the London Daily Mail, Saudi Arabia not only rejected the elder bomber's request to come to the country to go to Mecca. Not only did they not let him in the country, but they wrote a letter in 2012 to our Homeland Security Department, warning them about Tamerlan. And again, this is the first I've heard of this. And if it's true, it's another example of us not heeding the warnings and following through.
Correct. And it's particularly ironic when you consider that 19 of the 19 bombers. Or most of the 19 bombers on 9/11 were Saudis.
Is this about political correctness? I mean, you, sir, and I admire you greatly for this. The Wall Street Journal piece you wrote about a week ago now, touting the fact that this is jihad. You are not afraid to say that right off the bat, and you certainly are correct. But our government likes to tap dance around that. You know better than I how the FBI has been have their hands tied in interrogation in the training manuals. It's just been wiped void of words like jihad and Islamic terror. So the FBI agents, when they did talk to this guy in 2011, probably couldn't even ask him the questions that you and I would have asked him if we could sit there with him and conduct the investigation ourselves.
Well, look, I don't know whether they could or they couldn't, or whether they did or they didn't. I do know that when his photo went up within a couple of days of the bombing, the people who conducted that interview should have seen it and realized, good grief, this is the guy we talked to. We need to figure out how and why that didn't happen. Also, I mean, you have the Attorney General day before yesterday delivering a speech to the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith, in which he mentions the Boston bombing in an offhand way to say that defendant will feel the full weight of the law, but then goes on to talk about how the Justice Department is going to be on the alert for anti-Muslim incidents and backlash, and goes on at great length to talk about how the Civil Rights Division intervened in a zoning case in Tennessee to permit a mosque to be built over local opposition. Somehow I think his head's in the wrong place.
Yeah, and much as if you're aware of this remark or not, when he was in Turkey, Secretary of State Kerry alluded to the bombing, but he alluded to it to make a point to the people of Turkey that we know how you felt when those people on the flotilla, who of course were activists at the least and terrorists at the most, fighting the Israelis who came on the ship, and that's why they got killed. He compared those deaths. He says, I know how you feel because we just went through something in Massachusetts, so my heart breaks. I mean, he put those two in the same sentence, which was just so offensive, I can't tell you.
That's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous.
But it seems like that's who's running this administration. And as you know, Eric Holder under Janet Reno went to the FALN bombers, bomb makers in prison, and said, don't you want clemency? And Bill Clinton granted them clemency. And that leads to this question, sir. Do you believe, because nothing's been said yet, do you believe at least that Eric Holder will decide that this is a capital case and ask for the death penalty in the case of the Boston bombing?
There is every reason for the U.S. Attorney in Boston to seek the death penalty. This guy is a poster child for the death penalty when you consider what he did and the foreplanning it took. And I'm, by the way, convinced that the two of them did not act alone. I'm not talking about the three charged today. I'm talking about before, because the creation of those bombs and other materials wasn't entry-level work. They function with others. When you consider all of that, it would be inexcusable, I think, for him not to seek the death penalty, and it is his decision. I
can't let that go without asking this. Do you believe, then, that they acted with someone who was helping them physically here in the United States, and are we still in danger, do you believe, from that person or persons?
I don't know who that person or persons is or are, and I don't know whether they're still in the United States. But again, it's inconceivable that they built this stuff themselves out of a handbook that said insert tab A in slot B.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that even professionals don't do without years of training. And the trigger device was different from what is contained in that magazine that they supposedly.
I was just going to say that on Insight on Al Qaeda. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
no,
this is different.
You're absolutely right. Okay, I got one more for you. The president yesterday brought up at the press conference Guantanamo Bay, and again reiterated how it's not us, it's not what we're about. We got to close it. I'm going to go restart the effort to close it, and also said that about the hunger strike that's going on. I don't want those people to die. And again, alluded to Guantanamo Bay as a recruiting tool for terrorists, as if, that's all they need to look at is Guantanamo Bay. There's not enough Islamic fundamentalism without Guantanamo Bay, or it'll all go away magically if that closes. Your reaction to the president's remarks on Gitmo?
Look, I visited Gitmo when I was the Attorney General. Gitmo has three things going for it that I've never seen anybody refute. It is remote, secure, and humane. The people there are treated very, very well. We just spent six figures to resurface the soccer field there. I visited the cell of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He wasn't in it at the time because he was out visiting with a delegation from the International Committee of the Red Cross, so he could tell them how terrible his life was. I visited his cell and discovered that he had in a room adjoining it an exercise room with an elliptical machine that was the same make and model as the one that I used at the Landsberg where I was living when I was Attorney General, except he didn't have to get up at 5 a.m. and wait in line. So, somehow the notion that that Guantanamo is this great disgrace escapes me, and I think that the president is doing us all a disservice by perpetuating it.
Well, sir, I think you're doing us all a service by speaking the way you're speaking, and I am very happy and proud that you came on the show. I hope you'll come back, sir.
I'm happy and glad, proud to have been invited. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. That's former U.S. Attorney General Michael Mukasey.